Ladies and gentlemen, friends of civilization, I'm grateful to welcome you today to today's roundtable. I want to thank the families, the very brave and courageous families who are with us today to discuss the hostages that have been kidnapped by Hamas, the puppets of Iran. And to show how important this hearing is, I'm just very grateful that as chairman of the Middle East Subcommittee, I have the opportunity to chair the committee, but we actually are really fortunate to have the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mike McCall, and we have the ranking member, Greg Meeks, Texas Republican, Greg Meeks, Democrat, New York. And then it's also significant that we actually have a Congressmember brand new and all the way from Rhode Island. So Gabe Amo, thank you for being here. And so we're very fortunate to have so many people. And then before I begin, I also want to let everyone know that we've got virtually a full house of members of Congress, very distinguished people like Keith Self from New York, Texas. But we also have, I'm grateful, Congresswoman Ileana Ross-Lehtinen, who is visiting. She is the former chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. And Congresswoman Lehtinen, thank you for being here. And she's, she being a Cuban American herself, she understands the challenges of freedom and never to give up. With that in mind, I will recognize myself for an opening statement, and then we'll have a statement by Congresswoman Kathy Manning of North Carolina, and then our chairman, Mike McCall, will make an opening statement, and then we will proceed with Congressman Greg Meeks, and then we will proceed further. With that, ladies and gentlemen and friends of Israel, thank you for joining us today for this sobering conversation following the horrific attack, invasion by the puppets of Iran, the Hamas terrorists, on October 7th. We appreciate the host families of Abigail Eden, Itali Ken, and Omar Noota and Eden Alexander, who were taken hostage, being kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. First, we're overjoyed that the 4-year-old Abigail Eden, whose parents were mercilessly murdered by the Hamas terrorists, has been released. We thank the family members of these hostages who are here today to speak about the nightmare their families are enduring as they fight for the release of their loved ones. On October 7th, the world witnessed and Israel experienced the deadliest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Iranian puppet Hamas terrorists not only killed Israeli civilians, but Americans and citizens from Ireland to Germany to Russia to Thailand to Argentina have been murdered or kidnapped. Hamas terrorists murdered over 1,200 Israelis in cold blood and kidnapped over 240 innocent people, holding them as hostages under inhumane and barbaric conditions. This hatred is not just shocking. Hamas outlined their plans in a 1988 covenant stating their intentions for the world, and that is, quote, "The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews. When the Jews hide behind stones and trees, these stones and trees will say, 'O Muslims, O Abdullah, there is a Jew behind me. Come and kill him.'" End of quote. It's so tragic that, indeed, Hamas made it perfectly clear what they intend to do, and it's a declaration of genocide against people of Jewish heritage. We must work tirelessly to bring home every hostage, freeing them from the murderous terrorists who kidnapped them. We know that the civilian deaths in Gaza are human shields, with Iranian puppet Hamas terrorists solely responsible for the tragic deaths in Gaza today. Hamas terrorist puppets of the Iranian regime seek to break the spirits of those they seek to destroy, but they will not succeed. We are united in our mission to free all hostages from captivity by the Hamas puppets of the regime in Tehran. Your presence here today sends a strong message of unity and unbreakable spirits. I visited with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem in August to reassure the people of Israel of American support in face of the Iranian regime. Today, we are joined by Ronen and Nora Neotra, the parents of the hostage Omar Neotra, an Israeli Defense Force soldier being held hostage by Hamas. Omar is 22 years old, from Plainview, New York. As a dual Israeli-U.S. citizen, he is serving in the IDF when he was captured. Omar had deferred his admission to Binghamton University in New York to serve in the IDF. We're also joined by Ruby Ken, the father of Itai Ken, who is also an IDF soldier who has been held hostage by Hamas. Itai was a 19-year-old American citizen who was kidnapped from his base next to the Nakela outside, near the border of Gaza on October 7th. Itai was on active duty as part of a tank unit when he was kidnapped by Hamas. Ruby, sadly, has not received the proof of life for his son, Itai, and the International Red Cross is not able to provide medical attention to him. And for those of you who have members in the military, my oldest son served in Iraq, my second served in Baghdad as a Navy doctor, my third son served in Egypt with Bright Star, my fourth son served for a year in Afghanistan. So I especially identify the horror of what you're addressing. Finally, we're joined by Liz Hirsch Naftali, the great aunt of 4-year-old Abigail Eden, who was fortunately released by Hamas on Sunday, November 26. Liz was in Israel on October 7th when Abigail was brutally kidnapped by Hamas after they mercilessly murdered both of her parents on October 7th in their home at the Kfar Island kibbutz. Abigail was in her father's arms when he was shot and killed by the Hamas terrorist and taken hostage at just 3 years old of age. She turned 4 while in terrorist captivity. Again, I, along with the American people, share in our gratitude that your grandniece was released over the weekend after 50 days of captivity, and we are grateful that she is once again with the family. We will not stop, and again, joined by the leadership of the Foreign Affairs Committee, until the remaining hostages, including an estimated 9 Americans, have been released. We appreciate the opportunity to hear your stories as we work together in support of your families and to fight for the release of your loved ones and all who are being held by the Iranian puppets of Hamas. With that, I now proceed and recognize Congresswoman Kathy Manning from North Carolina.
Thank you to my dear friend, Chairman Joe Wilson, for organizing this roundtable, and thank you to the families for being here. We can only imagine what you're going through, but we are so deeply grateful that you have come time and time again to share your stories with us. On October 7th, we woke in horror to Hamas's brutal and despicable terrorist attacks, firing rockets at innocent civilians, storming the border by air, land, and sea, invading Israel with the specific purpose of killing civilians and capturing civilians. They went house to house, murdering babies, executing parents in front of their children, massacring more than 250 young people at a music festival. And in addition to the 1,200 people that Hamas killed that day, they took an estimated 240 innocent civilians hostage in Gaza, including elderly women, children, and babies. Like so many of my colleagues, I have spent the past 6 weeks meeting with the families of the hostages. People like the Siegel family from my state of North Carolina, whose relatives Keith and Aviva were kidnapped from kibbutz Kfar Aza, and fortunately, Aviva was released this weekend, but Keith is still captive. And of course, I've met with each of you, with Hagit and Ruby Chen, with Ronan and Orna Nutra, Yael and Adi Alexander, Liz Hirsch Naftali, and Noah Naftali. We're so grateful for you being here. I feel like you're all my extended family by now. I think about your loved ones every day, and I talk about them as often as I can because just like you, I want to make sure that they are not forgotten with everything else that's going on in this world. And just like the stories of Holocaust survivors, each one of your stories is unique Each story is heartbreaking because each of the hostages have loving family members whose lives have been torn apart, who are living with the agony of not knowing what has become of their loved ones. Are they okay? Are they healthy? Are they injured? Are they alive? And will you ever see them again? I have heard stories that have brought me to tears, stories that haunt my dreams, that should make all of us redouble our efforts to bring those hostages home. The past few days have seen significant breakthroughs in attempts to bring the hostages held by Hamas home to the families. And I applaud the efforts of the administration, of Israel, the regional partners, who have worked to ensure that the agreed upon hostages are released, but there is much more work to be done. And Liz, we're so happy that Abigail is brought home, but I just want to say to those of you who have been happy with the other hostage families, you've watched their families reunited, I know how hard it must be for you to wait and watch, knowing that your loved ones are still in places unknown and conditions unknown, and we pray for you and we'll be waiting to greet you with them someday in the future. Just yesterday, I was proud to help lead the debate on the House floor on a bipartisan resolution that we passed unanimously, demanding the release of the hostages. Today is an important opportunity for all our members to hear these stories and to redouble our efforts to do everything we possibly can to push for the remaining hostages, every single one of them, to be released, and for the International Committee of the Red Cross to be admitted to visit the hostages. And countries around the world should join in demanding the immediate release of the remaining hostages. But I just want to mention how outrageous it is that the Red Cross still has not been allowed in to meet with the hostages, and we continue to call for the Red Cross to be allowed to meet with the hostages. So thank you again to the chairman, to the chairman of the subcommittee, to the chairman of the full committee and ranking member. Thank you to all of our colleagues for being here. We look forward to hearing from these families, but most of all, we look forward to bringing all the hostages home.
And thank you very much, Congresswoman Kathy Manning of North Carolina. And this is, you're seeing actual proof of Republicans and Democrats are working together, united, on behalf of the people of Israel and on behalf of the kidnapped hostages. We now proceed to the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Mike McCall of Texas.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson and Ranking Member Manning. Let me welcome you under such horrific circumstances. We stand united with you as Americans on this committee. We put our partisanship aside. We always say it stops at the water's edge. I can't help but feel the grief having traveled to Israel, but my father was a bombardier in World War II, and he bombed the Nazis, and they destroyed the Nazis. And then we uncovered the death camps. And we always say, never again, never again. And here we are in this century, in this time, with the largest slaughtering of Jews since the Holocaust. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. My father saw it, but I never thought I'd see it. Their covenant from the river to the sea, that we will obliterate the state of Israel, really says it all. The Hamas leader, who was a prisoner himself, who was released, said, I will continue to invade and slaughter Jews again and again until we win. Well, the United States is standing up to this. And I will say, I'm proud of this administration for standing with Israel, because we are Americans first. And we need to bring more of our American hostages home. We've only brought one home. I credit the administration, leaders in Congress. I thank you to countries like Qatar, but we have to get our American citizens home into safety. The Ranking member and I had the honor to travel to Israel about a week ago, and we met with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and we saw the horrific Hamas video. Chilling. I've never seen the Prime Minister, who's a very stoic, strong man, driven to tears, watching his own people being killed in such a horrific manner, and the rapes and the beheadings and the slaughter of innocent Jewish people. He will not rest until they are eradicated. Not just for the Jewish people, but for the Palestinians. Because only until we can free them from the Palestinians are the Jewish people going to be free from terrorism. And only until then can we have peace in the Middle East, true peace. And I think that is what the result of this horrific act was. But I will not rest. I know the ranking member will not rest, and members on this committee will not rest until we bring every American back home to the United States. I'm so delighted that Abigail made it out of that hell, and hearing them describe the conditions. And we met when we were there with the brother of Emily Hand, a beautiful 9-year-old girl who was finally released. But we need more. We passed the most bipartisan resolution in the history of the Congress condemning Hamas and standing in support of the state of Israel. More co-sponsors than ever in the history of Congress, which speaks volumes about where Congress is. As you see these Hamas protesters in the streets, know that the American people, by the representatives, support you and support the state of Israel. And I just want to close with a mother who I met with not very long ago, whose son is still in captivity. She said her son was, a translation in Hebrew was the son of light. And she said, you know, Chairman, lightness will defeat the darkness. I know it so. His lightness, our lightness, will defeat this darkness in Gaza, this hell, this darkness of captivity will be ultimately defeated by the light. And that is really what this message is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mike McCall. And we now proceed to Ranking Member Greg Meeks of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me associate myself with the remarks of you, Chairman Wilson, of you, Chairman McCall, of you, Vice Ranking Member Manning. Your words, your thoughts are moving, and I think that you speak for all of us. Let me say to the families, because as Mr. McCall has said, I've had the opportunity, whether it was in Israel or recently, anytime I see you, you give me hope. That's why your presence here is so important. I really can't imagine what you're going through. I really can't. I'm a father of three daughters, and 3 granddaughters. I can't imagine on a Saturday afternoon, my daughters and my grandkids, on a regular day, happen to be bright and sunny, going out about their normal business. And then all of a sudden, terrorists come and change their lives forever. The video that Chairman McCall talked about, where we could see some who were taken hostage, how they were taken hostage. That's inhumane. It is unconscionable. But yet, thank you for having the courage to be here today to tell your story, because it is so important that your story is told. And it is even more important that we don't stop until your loved ones are returned to you. And when they are returned, the story still must be told so that generations yet unborn understands what took place. They have to know the inhumanity and the insaneness of terrorists and terrorism. You can't be human and take, as we've seen, babies, 3 years old. We're glad and we want to make everybody has to be 3 years old just to think that somebody's going to take a 3-year-old and hold them hostage. Seniors, disabled, mothers, fathers. But you're here. Thank you. Thank you for being willing to hear, because it is so important for every member of Congress to know, every American to know, every human being to know. Because to know and to put ourselves, or to even imagine, which I can't as a father. I just can't. I don't know how you do it, but I thank you for doing it. I really do. Because we got to feel the human touch is what you're providing in your grief and in your hope. Because hope is a part of this also, which, it's easy to lose hope. But you have shown you have not given up hope. And we know that there's been some 81 hostages returned. And as I think Representative Manning said, it's hard for those who have not been. But you continue to give hope to us. And what that does do for members of Congress, it makes it so that we will not relent. We will not stop. We will not forget. We will continue to work. We will put politics aside until your hope becomes a reality of the return of your loved ones. Thank you. Thank you. The United States Congress, the American people, and the world owes you a deep, deep thank you for doing what you do, because you are going to make sure that they are never forgotten and returned home, even in this time of your concern. May God bless each and continue to bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.